Okay, hi. Namaste, Badane, Jai Jinendra. We're just going to start with the Nauka mantra first. Okay? Om Namo Arihantanam. Om Namo Siddharam. Om Namo Ayariyanam. Om Namo Ajayanam. Namo Loye Savasahunam. Eso Panchanamokaro. Sarva Pavapanasano. Mangalanancha Sarvesim. Padamanghavai Mangalam. Padamanghavai Mangalam. Okay. Hi, everyone. For everyone who doesn't know me, my name's Monica. I'm a committee member. And when I was asked to do this intro, because one of my colleagues was meant to do it, I was like, where do I start? What do I say? So I was like, let's start with something a bit more interesting. So I want to ask you to put your hand up if you've been to a menopause talk before. There's not that many. Wow, I was expecting loads of hands. Okay, put your hands down. Is this the first kind of topic like this that you've been to before? Or have you been to other topics similar to this? None. Okay, cool. Right. Put your hands up if you've done some research on menopause, like any at all. Right, that's quite a lot of hands actually. That's amazing. Okay, so let me just give you some house rules first, because I think those are really, really important. So for a start, please turn your phones off. I'm going to do mine now. Okay. Fire exits through there or the dining room and out, and you go across the street if there is a fire, which there shouldn't be really. Please don't take any photos. We are recording it, and it will go onto YouTube at some point. The toilets are just through here. But I suggest that if you're going, you go through those doors and then go around so it doesn't disturb anyone from over here, if that's okay. And that's it. So let's start with Meera, okay? What can I say about her? Her main aim is to raise awareness on educating women on menopause, as it should not be feared and it shouldn't be daunting for any of us. Meera's first-hand experience and journey has developed through knowledge using practical, easy tools to support and navigate this in different stages of their lives. I'm sure she's going to tell us more about her experiences, and hence I'm going to pass it on to her. Just before I do that, any questions you have, please just wait till the end and she'll answer them. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here. It's a real privilege and an honor. I think contact was made a while ago, and we finally got here. And I'm just so glad to see a room full of men and women and children, some children, because this really is an important topic for everybody to just have more education about. So thank you for the introduction. My name is Meera Bogle. I never thought that I would be standing here, and those of you who've heard me speak before will always hear me say this, but literally, if anybody had said when you're 56 or 55, I'm 56 this year, but 55, you're going to be a menopause campaigner, activist, expert, whatever it is that, you know, I am, being educator, I would never have known that because I didn't know what menopause was myself. Absolutely didn't have a clue, and that is why I'm standing here today. Today's talk to you has been supported by Holland & Barrett and by Wellbeing of Women. Wellbeing of Women is an amazing charity that does a lot of work around women's health. Their main aim is to improve women's health. And along with them, I'm part of something called the Women's, it's called the Health Collective. And we're small groups of people that work like I do on grassroots with everybody in the community. And we together are trying to create more knowledge to feed into something called the Women's Health Strategy, which is a government policy that is 10 years, and we're trying to feed into that. So where are the gaps and things like that? So that's kind of part of what I'm doing. I've also been part of the cross-parliamentary inquiry into menopause and been invited to the House of Lords for events and things on the menopause mandate. So I don't know if any of these things are familiar, but I've kind of been to lots of different places. So yes, my passion is to raise awareness about menopause. And the reason for that is because I struggled. I really, really, really struggled. So I do use slides so that you don't need to look at my face the whole time. You can actually look over there if you want to as well. But the slides also just prompt and remind me as well of what I should be saying, because one of the symptoms of menopause can be brain fog. Okay, so yeah, I know, I love that. There it is. What I really loved was the fact that a lot of people raised their hands when we talked about, have you done some research into menopause? Can I just ask, follow on from that, did you find the research useful? Did you find it relevant? Yeah? You did. You found it relevant to South Asians, to you as an Indian woman. It talked about what your symptoms would be. No, because it's all based around, and I say this very openly because it's true, it's all based around white women of a particular socio-demographic, socioeconomic, geographical, cultural. And actually what we're going to learn today, and what I really am passionate about, which is why I decided when Holland and Meera approached me, I don't sell anything for them, because I don't do that, or promote anything for them, but I was part of their campaign, which is Every Menopause Matters. And they are one of the first retailers that actually have menopause experts in their shops that women can access for free, who speak 4 different languages. So that for me was like, I can't do this on my own. I can't visit, because, you know, quite often this isn't, somebody asked me earlier, you know, do you do this for a living? I wish I could if I could earn a living from it. But, you know, at the moment, there just isn't that appetite. So I actually, like a lot of people in this field, or women's health field, actually go out into communities and try and reach people, because there isn't enough research, there isn't enough knowledge, and there isn't enough awareness about the fact that culturally, ethnicity, culture, all make a difference to your symptoms. An example of one of those, and we will get to this, is that actually, as Indians, there isn't enough research for starters, but as Indians, we are likely to start our menopause journey much earlier, even in our mid-30s, and actually go through perimenopause from our mid-30s to mid-40s, and go through menopause in our mid-40s. But if you go to your doctor or your GP, the advice there, because that is government guidance, is that, you know, you will start your menopause journey from 45 to 55. You'll be menopausal at 55. That's not everybody. It certainly wasn't me, which is why I got fobbed off again and again and again every time I went to the doctor, and actually thought I had every disease under the sun. You know, I thought I had, when it started, my hair was falling out. I had lost confidence, I'd lost self-esteem, and for 10 years, I pretty much had every symptom that there is going. So, you know, I went from thinking I'd got Alzheimer's, to thinking I'd got cancer, to thinking I'd got fibroids, to thinking that, you know, there was something very seriously wrong with me. So I will start by explaining what menopause is. Because again, there's a lot of stuff around this, and if you know this is good, it's great. There's never enough reinforcement about what menopause is. So when we talk about menopause, we usually cover 3 terms that maybe people have heard. One is perimenopause, the other is menopause, and then the last one is postmenopause. Now, there are some other variations to that, so I'm not going to get into that today, because I think we need to keep it quite kind of easy to take away and take home. You need to be able to kind of absorb the information. So we're just going to leave it as those 3. So, perimenopause. Perimenopause is the stage. So menopause in itself is literally a stage of life where we go from being fertile, so being able to have babies as women, to being infertile. So let's just clarify, this is not a disease. We are not sick. we can't avoid it. You know, we're not going to grow out of it. This is just, you know, it is something that happens to every female, okay? So the beginning of that journey where where our bodies are getting used to this whole new thing of going from being fertile to infertile is called perimenopause. So this is a time, it can be up to 10 years, as it says. And this is a time during which you'll start to notice some things that are changing. You'll sort of not feel the same. You won't, you know, you'll notice changes happening in your body, in your physical appearance, mentally, emotionally, all of that. Things will start to change. And those changes, and we'll talk about symptoms in a second, but those changes are usually the beginning of that transition from being fertile to infertile. Really important to understand that you can still become pregnant during this time because you're still having a period, you're still ovulating. So that's also really, really, really important because people will say, oh, no, but I'm still, you know, I'm still ovulating, I'm still having a period. Well, that doesn't, you will still be going through this stage. So during this time, your hormones are fluctuating, but our hormones already fluctuate as women. That happens every month. So you don't often know, like, oh, you know, I've got some younger clients I train as a personal trainer in their mid-30s, just had babies, and they're going, but my body's not going back to how it was, and my periods are all different, and my hair is falling out, and I'm looking at them going, and I'll say, have you considered you could be going through perimenopause? And they're like, huh? But I've just had my baby. I'm not old. You don't have to be old. It isn't something, we've got to disassociate age with perimenopause. I would have been in my late 30s. I think if I start to look back, I was probably definitely in my late 30s. But if I look back 100%, it was when I was 40 for sure. Because it was on my 40th birthday, getting ready to go out. I just couldn't go out. I was mortified because my hair was thinning, and I'd lost confidence. So, you know, there are certain milestones, and you will all see them. And as partners, as husbands, as brothers, as sons, you will be able to see this in those people that you love as well. So it's so important that the guys are here because it's just, you are part of this whole, the solution to everything, you know, the making things better. So what's menopause then? Well, as I said, most commonly that's what we're told, 45 to 55. So if you go to the doctor after, you know, 56 or whatever, and they will assume that you are post-menopausal, but we'll get into that in a second. So it literally is 12 months of not having a period at all, no bleed at all, okay? 12 months. So sometimes you get people saying, yeah, but I've been through 9 months and then I had it, and it's like, yeah, okay, no, you've got to start back again at number 1 and go all the way to 12. So you've got 12 months, no bleed. And for some women, this is something they know and they can timetable it and they understand. But for many, it's literally just like, oh, okay. That hasn't happened for a while, so actually I must be postmenopausal, and you can't quite put your finger on it. So the day after you are at 12 months, you're postmenopausal. So menopause is literally that signifies that time where you are now no longer fertile. You are no longer able to conceive and have a baby naturally. I see all those wonderful celebs that have babies after, you know, but they will have been postmenopausal, and it will not have been usually a natural birth, but I'm not going to speak for everyone. So postmenopause. Postmenopause signifies, as it says, the end of our fertility. Now, for a lot of women, it can be a really difficult time in terms of realization of that. It brings with it old age. It brings with it that thing of, well, that's it, life's over, you know, all of that. And I think if we look back, and we look back at past generations and our older relatives, you'll kind of see that attitude there where they've gotten a bit old, and they're kind of like, if I look at myself at 55 and I look at my aunts and uncles who I used to see when they were 45 and 55, they were literally old, really old. So I think the most important thing to remember as well is that culturally, how we view this stage of our life really has an impact on how the individual, how the woman feels. So we need to break the taboos about it being old, about you having to stop everything you're doing, about, you know, oh, she's past it, or whatever that is. There's such negative language around this stage of life. But when you go to cultures, for example, in Japan, where women, elderly women, are held up on a pedestal, it's called the second youth. It's called the second stage of their life, or, you know, they're wise women. These are positive things, okay? So it's really important, again, when we're speaking to each other, speaking to our friends, speaking to family members, and the younger generation coming through, this is not a stage of life to be feared. It is not a stage of life to be anxious about. And the best way of doing that, or removing all of those, is to break the taboos, talk about things, but also educate ourselves as well. So, having said all of those wonderful things, there is still a phase that we need to go through. There are still symptoms that happen and affect us. Why does this happen? So the thing that no one ever tells us is that we've got these hormones in our body. We've got progesterone, we've got estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. And we also have another chemical called cortisol in our body as well. We've got lots of chemicals, but I'm just focusing on those first three for now. So the first three are sex hormones, which are really important, and they help us keep going as we're going, and everything is as it should be when all of those are working together. But what people don't tell us, and what nobody tells us, is that estrogen is regarded as something called a master hormone. And the reason for that is that you actually have estrogen receptors in pretty much every part of your body. On a cellular level, you have estrogen. In your brain, you have estrogen receptors. In your gut, you have estrogen receptors, okay? And estrogen is involved and needed for lots and lots of different chemical processes, okay? So estrogen is needed for temperature regulation, association, hot flushes, cold flushes. Was that happening to me? Well, it's because you don't have estrogen. So your thermostat's gone. So 1 minute, you drink a hot drink, you're hot, and then you have a cold drink, then you're cold, you know, you don't know what's going on. Estrogen receptors are needed for us to be able to absorb and digest our food. Estrogen is now being linked to things like Alzheimer's and dementia in the sense of it being, helping to prevent it. Bone disease, osteoporosis. Estrogen is also being linked to things like diabetes and insulin resistance, okay? How we process and digest fat, where fat is stored. So all of those things are, you'll notice, part of some of these symptoms. And there are about 50. So when estrogen is not there, for some of us, 1 in 4, so a quarter of us, will breeze through and not notice, and our body will adjust really easily, and you'll be looking at the next person going, what's wrong with that one? Because she's having a hot flush, but I must be fine. There is a long-term impact of menopause, which we need to consider as well. But 1 in 4 of us will struggle so badly that it may mean we need to leave our jobs. We feel it's debilitating. These symptoms become debilitating. But for half of us, half of the women sitting in this room, half of the women all over the world will actually have some form, some kind of these symptoms that will mean that we need to change our lifestyle. We need to make changes to us and who we are and how we're operating. We can't keep doing the things we were doing before because we don't have estrogen. So if you get tired, one of the symptoms is being tired and fatigue. Well, because estrogen is needed in your cells to produce energy. Like, who ever told you that? Okay, now it makes sense why I'm tired, because I don't have the estrogen that I used to have. Your body does produce estrogen, but not the same type and not the same amount. So it's like putting diesel in a petrol car or something. Just doesn't quite operate in the same way. You also need estrogen to produce serotonin, okay, which helps us feel good. That's why we have low mood, because we don't have enough estrogen. One of the things that we can do to help that is to exercise, because exercise releases things like dopamine and things like that, where we are then feeling so much better. So exercise is super important. We'll talk about kind of the things that we can do to help. But there are some really, there are 50, well over 50 symptoms, and there are some really odd ones, like burning mouth syndrome, tinnitus, vertigo, like weird body odor, sinusitis and inflammation in your kind of in your facial area, high histamine levels. So, you know, having allergies and intolerances, which you never had before, bloating, joint pain. I mean, you know, it isn't all hot flushes and night sweats at all. But there are some really important symptoms that we need to consider. So going back to menopause, you don't just, I'm not menopausal. One day, I just wake up one morning and I'm not menopausal. Once you start your perimenopause journey, you are in that stage of life for the rest of your life. Okay, so it's not like adolescence or puberty where you grow out of it. Yeah, we are going to be menopausal until we die. So for me, that if I live till I'm 80, God willing, hopefully I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing till I'm 80 and beyond, but I will have lived in a menopausal stage for over half my life. And yet nobody knows anything about it. And the GPs, by the way, are brilliant at what they do, but they don't have the training. And that's one of the things that we were looking at when we were looking at the APPG. We were looking at kind of where is it going wrong? It's because they don't have the training. Unless a GP or a nurse chooses to specialize and take some training themselves in menopause, it's not covered, barely. So therefore, I'm sitting across the room from a GP telling them I am going through these symptoms, and at that time, for sure, no, you're not. Of course you're not. You're way too young. 3 times, you know, I got given antidepressants, I got given take some whatever anti-inflammatories because your joints are paining, you know, and they were doing the right thing, but nobody was joining the dots. And that's where it is. So if you go in for anxiety, one of the symptoms, you're going to get given antidepressants, which could be right for you. Absolutely. But actually, if you've got then joint pain and you've also got low mood and then you've also got fatigue and then you've also got weight gain and then you've also got hair loss and then you've also got perhaps a change in your thyroid or you've also got, you know, like pre-diabetes, all of these things start to suddenly create and you've got brain fog and you're tearful for no reason and your relationships with your family and friends are changing and you suddenly feel, you know, useless and like, what am I doing? And then, you know, your periods are erratic and you don't know what's happening there and you can't communicate at work. All of these things happening. Now, no one's joining those dots. It's only when you start to join those dots together that you suddenly realize, okay, hold on a minute. This is what's happening to me. I am going through perimenopause or menopause or postmenopause. So in perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause, the symptoms don't necessarily go away, but they change. They can change. So, you know, you may not have some of these during perimenopause, but you may have them postmenopause. Postmenopause, there is a really serious concern about women's health. Heart disease, obesity, diabetes, thyroid issues, increased risk of cancers, Alzheimer's, dementia, osteoporosis. Lots and lots of disease, risk to disease. And the reason for that, again, is because these hormones are no longer with us in the right way that they used to be. So we're more vulnerable and susceptible. So, sorry, you're fine. Okay. So there are some key factors here that were taken from the study, and this was something that I was doing when I was doing the campaign for Holland & Barrett. I did a lot of media stuff on this, but I mean, it is staggering, right? It is really, really staggering that 51% of the population don't feel like they're included in the conversation. We know that. I know that. I see it all the time. When I first started, and I remember what changed my mind into doing this was having a conversation with a lady, an Indian lady, and I just said, have you considered you're going through menopause? She said, that is a white woman's disease. Yeah, and I literally was like, wow, okay, this needs to change. And it was just a real sense of like people, I was coming up against so many hurdles. My mum, my family, you know, please don't talk about stuff like this, Meera. This is just so bad. We don't do this in our community. And I was like, yeah, exactly, that's why I'm struggling, because we don't do this in our community. And then when I sent her the message saying I was invited to Parliament, She was like, oh, beta, you're doing the best thing ever. Yeah. And then I was on the Sikh channel the other day, and she's like sending it all to her friends going, oh, she's on the Sikh channel. So, you know, things do change. But having, you know, the point being is we need to change that, and slowly we need to talk about it. And when I go to communities like yourselves, and I go to gurdwaras, one of the loveliest things, the first time I went, Harry was with me, and there was only about 7 or 8 women, and 2 or 3 of them were like elderly. You know, we're talking about 70s, 80s. I say elderly, I mean, it's not that elderly, but they were in their 70s and 80s. And they were there, and actually what was lovely was they didn't speak fluent English. They understood what I was saying, and I understood what they were saying, and they were having, and some of them had their daughters there. So literally they were like, the conversations they were having were amazing, because suddenly they were like, yes, that's what we went through. Those were the symptoms we had. This is what the doctor told us. This is what we got given. And then the daughters were going, well, I didn't know you were doing that. I didn't know you had that happen to you, or you felt like that. So that conversation, opening up those conversations within families and friend circles is really important. So we need to change this. We need to be able to make sure that information, access to information. This is why I asked you whether the research and when you were looking, whether it was useful. Because when I looked, all I found was the HRT that you took caused breast cancer, which was now we know is a flawed conclusion of the findings of the research that was done in America. Okay, so suddenly one day they all stopped HRT everywhere, worldwide, because there's an increased risk of cancer, which then was false. So there's loads of us, like myself, who would have probably been put on HRT, but never got the opportunity. And I didn't want to take it, because it was made from horse urine, from, is that right, Harry? Yes. Harry's pharmacist at the time was saying to me, take HRT, probably because I was driving him mad. But it was, but I was like, no, I am not putting that inside me. Now it's very different. The HRT is very different. It's a completely different thing that they give you, and it's identical to what your body produces. So it's much, much safer on every level. But, you know, there isn't enough research on the impact of that HRT on Indians, on South Asians, on Black women. There aren't enough people talking about it or doing the research that's needed. So it is important that we bridge this gap. It is important that we allow women, every woman, to access the care that they need. Yeah, it should not be a kind of, whatever they call it, postcode lottery, which it still seems to be with HRT. Okay. So as I said, ethnicity matters. So Dr. Shashi Prasad is hopefully going to be speaking at the conference that I'm organising later on in this year. She's amazing. She's really kindly used my story as part of her research, which I'm so happy for her to do. But she's written an article where, you know, she does show that ethnicity plays a culture, and ethnicity play a huge part in how women experience, what their symptoms are, how long it will be, what the long-term impact is. So it is important to bear in mind that this is more important for you, but this is also really important for those people providing treatment, like the doctors. So, you know, if we walk in, we're different people, but the doctors and GPs don't have time to go, but what's your lifestyle like? And what stresses do you have? And what do you eat? And how much exercise? They're just like, do you want HRT? You don't want HRT. What do you want? What do you want to do? And you're in there going, okay, well, can I think about it? Yeah, okay, bye, next. And you're out, right? And it's not because they're being rude, but it's because that's what they're there to do. And they don't have that time. And they're not given that time. And there's lots of different things that they have, parameters that they're bound by, like kind of, I'm not even, you know, like, money. Money plays a big part in all of it. Okay, so how do I know if I'm going through this? So this is really, really important. The most important way of knowing that something is happening to you, it's called the change. It used to be called the change for a reason, because your body's changing. It is changing physiologically in every way. There is a book by Dr. Lisa Mosconi called The XX Brain, which for me was a game changer, because I actually had to stop reading. I was an avid reader. I used to have 2 or 3 books going at a time. running a really, touch wood, successful business, had a team of 45 staff, you know, I mean, it was just, it was good, it was all right, it was fine, everything was fine. I got to a point where I actually couldn't read emails and I didn't know what was going wrong. I was actually studying psychology as well. And I remember doing the exam, the last exam for psychology, and I came out and I just said to Harry, I said, I can't do it, I can't keep going. And he was like, what's wrong? And I said, well, the words were dancing about. I managed to get the essays done and I passed, I did whatever. But I can't, I'm really struggling to read. And I thought it was my eyes. So I got eyes tested and they're all right, you know. I'm short-sighted, they kind of checked stuff. Do you need reading classes? No, not really. Didn't know what it was. Next thing is emails. I couldn't focus on emails. And then I couldn't read books. And I actually got to a point where I was scared to pick up a book because I would read 2 sentences and I'd be going, what have I just read? Okay, let me go back. Okay, who's that character? And you literally go, oh my God, this is the beginning of dementia or Alzheimer's. No one tells you that that is brain fog. No one tells you how to cope with that. So how do you know you're going through this? Is you. You know you best. Get to know yourself. Don't let somebody tell you, yeah, but you're just stressed, or yeah, but you just changed your job, or yeah, so-and-so's just had a baby, or you've just had, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. You know you. So the best thing to do is to look at symptoms. So there is a symptom checker. So before you go to your doctor, before you start to, you know, if you think this is what's happening, there is a symptom checker. There's one on my website, but they're readily available. If you just type in menopausal symptom checker, you'll get a whole list, about 45 symptoms. And the ideal thing to do is to keep a check of those symptoms daily, keep a note of them for about 2 months, every symptom. Even if there's not one on there and you think there's a change happening, write it down. Then you go to your doctor and you present and you say, this is what's happening to me. I just need you to have a look because, you know, these are the changes that are happening. That is going to be the best way for you to know that this is something that could be happening to you. You could be going through perimenopause or menopause or postmenopause. Your age is an indicator, but we've also just said about the fact that different cultures have and ethnicities have slightly different ages. So if, as an Indian, you could be anywhere from your mid-30s, late 30s, 40s, and upwards, starting perimenopause. Yeah, and remember, it can last for about 10 years. And we won't all have the same symptoms, but we may have similar symptoms. So keep a check of the symptoms. You've got the age there as well. And then finally, a lot of people say, right, so I'm going to the doctors and they're going to do a blood test whether I'm perimenopausal. No, they're not. The reason they're doing a blood test is because they want to make sure and check that there is nothing else happening. So make sure your thyroid's all right. Make sure your markers for your vitamins and your iron and all of those things are all right. What's your blood sugar like? They're checking all of those things. The reason why a blood test is an ineffective way of testing for perimenopause is because if you go back to what I said, this is a time during which your hormones are fluctuating, but your hormones fluctuate every month. So what's the baseline? What are they checking? They can't. If you're menopausal or postmenopausal, your estrogen levels are so low, yeah, that they will be able to do a blood test to test you. That's fine, because you haven't got that same level of estrogen. It's down on the floor, so the level is, you know, you're kind of flatlined with your estrogen, it's low. But when you're going through peri, it's going up and down like this. So if they take that blood test at that point in time and all your hormones are at a hunky-dory level, you then are just like, oh, but no, you can't be going through perimenopause, no. Yeah, but I know something's happening to me. You know, yeah, but your bloods are clear, your thyroid's fine, you're not diabetic, you're fine, off you go. But I know something's happening, you know? This is what keeps coming back to me with people I speak to. So you do need to be persistent, you need to keep that symptom checker, and you need to understand that your blood test is not going to be telling you whether you are perimenopausal. Okay? It will help you to know whether you are menopausal or postmenopausal. Okay? So it's not really an effective way. And the urine test and the Dutch test are kind of the same things, but these are not really done by the NHS or you can have it privately done. but not through the NHS. And the reason why a urine test might be slightly better, it's unnecessary. That's why the NHS feel it's unnecessary. And I mean, it's very individual. I'm not here to tell you what to do and not to do. I'm just here to give you the information. But a Dutch test, basically what they do is they test your urine at various points through the day, and then you get that sent off, and then they tell you where your hormone levels are throughout the day. And the reason why the urine test is more effective is because we actually, we wee out the hormones. So estrogen, anything excessive, anything left is weed out. So they can then measure, and through the day as well, you can measure what's going on. So that's a better way of knowing what's happening. But it isn't available, it isn't free. You have to pay for it. So it is something that you need to go and see somebody about. But again, this is about information. This is not about telling you what to do and not to do. So, symptoms. 36% of women in this room, 36% of women that were asked in the survey have said that menopause symptoms impacted their social life. They certainly impacted mine. I couldn't get on a train. I dreaded going out to meet people. I dreaded being in company. I just didn't want to go to, and I was a real social butterfly before. I was out all the time. We were out, you know, like people were in and out of our house. We were everywhere. Didn't want to meet anyone, didn't want to see anyone, lost all my confidence, completely impacted our social life. And that impact has an impact on the relationships that are around you, whether it's your family, because they don't understand what's wrong with you. Like, you know, my mum was saying, why aren't you coming? We're just all having dinner together. I don't want to see anyone. Why don't you want to see anyone? I don't know. I've got no idea why I don't want to see anyone, but I don't. So that is there. And then also home lives. So, you know, Harry talks about this very openly in our podcast and also on an Instagram live. And he says it, you know, he says he felt like he lost his best friend because he was happier at work rather than coming home because he didn't know what he was coming home to. He just had no clue. Because, you know, one minute I'm a little mess on the floor going, oh, save me, save me. And the next minute he'd come near me, I'm going to stab you with a knife. And, you know, and then the next minute it's like, no, you don't love me. Yes, you do love me. I don't know what's going on. You know, it just is all of this stuff. And it's just like hearing it from his perspective, it was a real eye-opener for me because I didn't realize he was impacted by it as much. And then hearing it from my daughters, who now, probably as Harry probably can recite all of this by heart and tell you everything, but they're so into their health now, you know, and they're so aware of this. And yes, that's why Mum was I was literally like 1 minute flying off the handle and the next minute the best one in the world. The next minute there was even a breadcrumb out of place. It was just like, who's done that? Why is that happening? You know, it is funny, but it is also has a massive impact on your relationships. So again, everybody in this room, thank you guys for being here because you can start to understand and see the picture coming together. I've got these guys everybody's nodding like that, going, oh my God, don't look at your wife because she might. And when we look at all of these things, and the reason why I'm showing you these things is because all of these things are going to impact and create a situation if you're struggling. So if you're struggling with sleep and insomnia, okay, and it keeps going on, and lack of sleep is a really big symptom for a lot of women. Waking up, it's that 3 o'clock wake up. Anybody else? 2, 3 o'clock? Yes, oh yeah. And you just wake up and you go, yeah, but I'm really tired and I can't go to bed. And that's going to have an impact. And then you go to sleep about 20 minutes before the alarm goes off. And then you've got to function the whole day and everybody wonders why you're really miserable and you're going to go. So that has an impact. Then on top of that, of course, you've already got no estrogen or estrogen's going, and then you've not had any sleep, and then you're trying to think about and remember things. You see how the impact is building up? And then because you're not sleeping well, you can't remember things, and you're feeling really low mood because you're not producing enough serotonin, you then start to eat, and then you think, oh no, but I'm gaining weight, and then you don't eat, but you're still gaining weight, and it's just like this vicious cycle. Unexpected joint pains. You know, I was able to get up 5 seconds ago, and now I'm suddenly going, oh, that's like my knees are going. And hot flushes, night sweats. And that's a really high percentage. I actually struggled with hot flushes and night sweats, more night sweats than anything else, but to the point where that cycle started for me. So night sweats were at its worst. I had them for about 10 years, but at its worst, and I never realized they were related to hormones. At its worst, we would be changing and I say we because we slept in the same bed, right? So if I'm having a hot flush and suddenly and I mean, when I'm saying drenched, you could have just chucked a bucket of water on me. And it was through the sheets, and it was through the bed duvet, and it was so we'd change the sheets, and I would have a shower. This could happen twice a night. And then he would have had lack of sleep. I would have had lack of sleep. We're both, going to box each other because and then he's not concentrating at work, and he's thinking, I'm not going home because she's going to be in a mess, so I'm staying, So it's just this big old scenario where it's disastrous. But it actually, for some women, and we've heard these stories, it's too much. For some women, they actually take their own lives, and it's absolutely devastating. This can be something, it can be as simple as they're going through this change. So it is really important that whilst there is a humorous side to all of this, it is also really, really quite serious for a lot of women as well. Okay, so how do we ease these symptoms? I don't know how I'm doing for time, but I'm hoping I'm all right. How do we ease these symptoms? And I do a lot of work with women on a one-to-one basis, but also in groups. But the thing that I like to explain to people really well is it's really important that you remember that even if your sister is doing something, it may not work for you, right? Because you are an individual person. So your friend, somebody said, I get it so often. My friend said to take this menopause supplement. I'm like, really? Okay, yeah. Why do you need it? Well, no, I don't think I do, but I'm just going to take it because they're taking it. Well, why are you wasting your money? What do you need it for? So it's just really, really important to go back always to you, turn inwards and look at yourself. What problem is it I'm trying to solve? The most effective way to support yourself during this time of life, and remember, this is now until forever, okay? So start now, start whenever, start when you're young, doesn't matter, really not a problem. But these are some really basic pillars. So the 5 there, HRT is there, I'll get to that in a minute, but there are 5 pillars. Sounds really basic, doesn't it? But when we think about exercise, it helps us to increase the dopamine levels, which help us to feel better. But that doesn't mean we have to start doing marathon running, or we have to do, extreme sport, or, we have to walk 22 miles a day. It doesn't mean any of that. It just means doing something, even 15 to 20 minutes of exercise every single day, of movement, moving more, yeah? Not being sedentary. Those 10,000 steps is just an arbitrary number. It's just been made up from nowhere and brought in. It really makes no difference. If I put a step count on, I don't do more than probably 5,000 or 6,000 steps, but I am very active and I'm busy the whole time, but I also exercise in a very different way. So I do yoga and I do strength training. That doesn't count as my steps, yeah? So it doesn't matter what you do, but it's making sure that it's effective and it's making you feel better. That's the key with exercise. Strength training, and by that I mean working with resistance, is one of the most important things you can do as a woman, because it reduces your risk of osteoporosis by almost 1% every year if you exercise regularly. And I mean lifting, eventually, heavy weights. What did I do the other? I train a lovely chap, and he's just started on this journey. And he was doing some weight the other day or something, and I just said to him, I don't know what he lifted. He did something like 10 kilos something, and I just went, well, I do that in 22 kilos. And he just looked at me and went, what? Yeah, I do. I'm not muscular, I'm not big. I don't look like, Arnold Schwarzenegger or The Rock. It's just not possible. But lifting those heavy weights and working against resistance helps your bones to stop getting so porous. So it actually encourages your bones to reproduce those cells, to produce more cells. So you don't get the holes in your bones. You don't get the kind of holes which make things unstable. So it's super important to get strength training in. It is also equally important to make sure that you are exercising so your heart rate raises, okay? So I do a particular thing where I actually have online, it's all online because a lot of my clients don't like to go out to be a member of a gym because it's just like too intimidating and stuff like that. 30 minutes, that's all we do, 30 minutes. They get enough, I mean, they're on the floor lying flat. I can't move. But after 30 minutes, it's all you need. And it's actually usually 23 minutes of work because we do a little warm up and we do a little cool down. 23 minutes of work every day. That's it. It's all they do. So you don't need hours and hours and hours and hours of time. Okay? It's just about being effective and efficient about how you exercise. And it may be that you want to choose to swim or to dance or to do any kind of thing that you enjoy. Okay, but just get that strength training in as well, that resistance training, and make sure you find somebody that can help you and guide you. Don't just go off and do it on your own. Please, ideally, don't use kind of YouTube-y type of stuff, because you just need somebody to help you to make sure you're doing the squat right, to make sure you're doing that right, because you could get a lot of injury as well. Food is really, really, really important. We need to make sure we're getting a really balanced diet, and we really need to make sure that we are understanding where the macronutrients, so the carbohydrates, the proteins, the fiber, and the fat are coming from. Okay, as people who would eat, if you're eating a plant-based diet, so a diet which is predominantly all plants, so no animal produce at all. It's just important to understand, yes, you can get your proteins, and yes, you can get your vitamins and minerals. Of course you can get all of it. It just, you have to work a little bit harder because you've got to keep stacking those up because your body doesn't absorb, we don't, not your body, everybody's body. Plant protein isn't as easy to absorb as meat protein. And again, I'm not here to tell you to eat meat or not eat because the community is as it is, but I'm just stating. So it's not about, oh my goodness, you've all got to be vegan, you can't be vegan, you can have to eat meat. None of that. Again, this is just about information. So yes, you can get everything you need from plants, absolutely, and from a plant-based diet, but you just have to work a little bit harder to make sure you're getting those proteins in, because quite often our proteins in a plant-based diet are linked in with carbohydrates. So for example, chickpeas are quite often really high in protein. They're not. They've got protein in them, but they've got a lot of carbohydrate in them. So, you know, we've just got to be mindful of that. That's all. So it's not about what type of cuisine you eat or any of that sort of thing. It's just understanding food. And you may find, as I said before, that you were able to eat those things and you can't eat them now. Something's, you know, getting you more gassy. Something's giving you tummy ache. You know, you're eating small amounts of food, yet you're still gaining weight. So really important to make sure you're getting the widest variety of vegetables that you can, predominantly vegetables. If you're thinking about vegetables and fruit, think about 80% of your day being and week being vegetables, 20% being fruit. Okay? So just because vegetables have got a lot of nutrients in them, and variety is key. Making sure that you're getting your proteins, as I said, at every single meal, and then making sure you're getting your carbohydrates, ideally not the processed ones. Processed foods tend to really not work well, especially as we get older, because our body just can't tolerate it anymore. You just suddenly can't do it. Things like alcohol as well. A lot of women will say that they can't tolerate alcohol anymore, even the smallest amount. Good or bad thing, again, doesn't matter, but that there. Things like coffee and tea, so caffeine can really have an impact on your symptoms. Yeah, because if you remember, we don't have our thermostat anymore. So a hot drink can make us hot, a cold drink can make us cold. So, and also things like the spices. Indian food is great, but just watch out for the spices, because they can heat you. You know, turmeric is there to heat. It's also a fantastic antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory, absolutely fantastic. But, you know, it can also cause you to have hot flushes. So just be mindful. Chilies can also cause you to have overheat. So just again, be mindful. It's not about kind of telling you what not to eat and eat, but it's just about thinking what impacts me? How does it impact me? Probiotics and prebiotics are all things to do with your gut health. Again, if you are looking for things, try to avoid things that are flavored or already got fruit in them. So if you're looking for things, you know, try and keep things as simple and close to what you would eat naturally as possible, yeah, not flavored or sweetened. Sleep is there is a lady called Susan Saunders, who again, I've been part of one of her books. I've got a chapter in there about mindset and how you shift mindset and stuff. She's amazing because she actually, her book focuses on why sleep is so important in terms of preventing brain disease. Because actually when you sleep, that's when that kind of, she sort of describes it as sort of cleaners come in and they clean up all the rubbish in your brain, and then you're set for the next day. So if you don't get a particular type of sleep and the amount of sleep, and I'm not a sleep expert, it impacts you. So again, imagine all of these things, you're not able to sleep because you're up at 3 a.m, you're not getting enough sleep. All of these things are going to have an impact. So we really need to think about sleep routine. And I don't know if anybody else has this common problem, but Harry is a night owl. I am an early bird, so I'm up at 4 because I always have been. 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, I get up. Harry will be going to bed about 11 or 12. I mean, back in the day, he would be going to sleep as I would be getting up probably. But we have a real issue with that because he'll want to be in bed doing his work, and I will want to be in bed going to bed. And that's a really common battle that a lot of people have. Or I'll want the window open and the fan on, and he'll be freezing going, oh. We've actually got friends of ours who like literally one of the husband will go sneak off and then turn the AC off. And as soon as he's done that, his wife will go, did you turn the AC off? He's like, no, I didn't. So, sleep is really, really important. So you need to, again, so glad the guys are here as well, because you really need to make sure that you're supporting. If your wife, sister, mother, whatever, has had a good night's sleep, they're going to be a much nicer person the next day. So I'm saying this for you, for your benefit. So there are ways to make sure that you get that sleep. Just like we put children to sleep, that routine, we need exactly the same. My grandson the other day, they've moved back home with us. Which is really interesting in itself. I love it because by 7 o'clock, everything's got to be really quiet in the house. We're all tiptoeing around. It's great because then I have dinner. 9:30, by the way, this is my bedtime. 9:30, I'm just going up now. Now there's no excuse of, you've got to work, you've got to do this, so you've got to have the laptop on, and what are we doing with this? No, because we've got to be quiet. So I go upstairs, and when we go in the bedroom, the lights have got to be down because he goes to sleep. It's fantastic. But the other night, for some reason, I have no idea, I think my other daughter came home, and then they were all hyped up upstairs, jumping on the bed, doing monkeys. He's only 18 months. So he's up, and then they were like, I could hear this. And then they were like, right, okay, it's bedtime. I'm thinking, this is going to be fun. Obviously, he screamed the place down because he was hyped up and then expected to go to bed. So it's the same thing with children as it is with us, as we need our sleep. We need that wind down. Our brain needs signals. Lights out, no TV. We need signals to get into that deep sleep, yeah? So it's really important to get a routine in place. Learning. Learning is one of the most important things we can do. Back in the day, it used to be you can't teach an old dog new tricks, right? That is rubbish. Rubbish. Neuroplasticity. Our brain is growing and developing all the time. We are creating new kind of links and new nerve endings connecting with each other, new experiences. So learning something is really important, something new. Now I couldn't read, so it was like, what am I going to learn? So I, just picked up a new skill. I picked up a different type of skill. One of my friends dances. I mean, it's phenomenal. She wins competitions everywhere. That was something she wanted to do. She wanted to learn something new. So just learning something is important. And socializing. You have a community. Use your community. Be with people, connect with people, because we are social beings. And, with the sad stuff that happened during COVID, I was one of those that I was like, I'm really happy in my own home. I don't need to go anywhere. And I didn't realize that was actually me getting into a kind of, there was fear. I don't want to go out. And it was only when my friends kind of were like, no, come on, let's go out. We're going to go and have a coffee or something. That I suddenly realized that, okay, yeah, actually it was fear. It was keeping me in. I was like, I don't need to go out. I'm fine. I'm happy on my own. There is an element of that, but there's also an element of we are social beings. We do need community to be together. Finally, we'll look at HRT, which is hormone replacement therapy. I am not a doctor, and neither am I an HRT specialist. So I am not going to, again, this is not about advising you what to and not to take, or the different types. But I am here to say that it is The hormone, the estrogen is basically derived from plantain. So it's derived, it's plant-based completely, and it's also body identical. So it's identical to what our body actually produces, and it is prescribed by the NHS, and it's approved by the NHS as well. So there is estrogen, there's progesterone, and there's testosterone. I know that there have been, I'm not on any, but I have to say, if I had this, and I will take it if I ever need to, because there isn't a time at which you can't take it. That's the other thing. So don't think you're past, you're past being able to take it. That's not true. You can start it pretty much at any time if there is a reason behind it and you need to. You also get localized estrogen as well, which can help with things like vaginal atrophy and vaginal dryness. But the HRT, it can be dispensed as a pump, it can be dispensed as a patch, it can be dispensed as a tablet. There's lots of different ways of taking it. So it shouldn't be something that is feared. It should be something that is looked into. And the risk of getting the risk of cancer is increased more with obesity than it is with taking something like HRT. So if you are obese, and I mean that, I'm using that in a word that, as a clinical word, as in your body fat percentage is high, it's too high, and you are regarded as obese, your risk to disease increases unbelievably. So, in that sense, we shouldn't be looking at this and thinking HRT and thinking, oh yeah, but that's my risk to disease and all the rest of it. And if you have ever taken contraceptive, whether that's a contraception, whether that's like the Meera coil or anything like that, you are already having some kind of HRT to balance out those hormones and create an artificial environment, as it were. Okay. Thank you so much for listening to me for this length of time. I really appreciate your engagement and your effort and sitting here for so long. But I'm really happy, and I would be more than happy actually if you could take some questions. But I don't know, are we having something else before this?
Is it on? Hi. Well done, guys. And thank you so much, Meera.
Pleasure.
But before we do that, we wanted to kind of get a male perspective on it. So I'm going to ask Umesh Masa, to come and kind of give his perspective on it, please. And then Nehal will do the Q&A.
Yeah. Should I sit here or do you want me to sit back there?
How long have we got?
5 minutes.
Actually, I have a question, Harry.
Oh, yeah.
Would you like to do the next session? Because I was asked earlier by my wife, why are you going to this? And I didn't really have an answer. I just said, because I am. It was more to help with the event. But having heard what I have, I think more men need to come. And I think men will bring their wives, because there are lots of women who are also reluctant to come and listen. So maybe we turn it around. Yeah? Yeah? Okay. So we have a yes and a yes. So, how long have I got? How long have I got? The key takeaway for me today is it is not temporary. It is for the rest of your life. Ouch. Huh? Seriously, I thought it lasts a few years and a few months. But that's a key learning for me today. And I think, I don't know, how many of you, put your hands up, how many of you thought it was for life as opposed to for a few months or years? Okay. Okay. So, from a male perspective, my wife also suffered from a very early stage. But at that time, I was only aware of, mood swings, anxiety, hot flushes, disrupted sleep. But today I learn about brain fog. Seriously, I never ever gave that consideration. So here's me asking her questions and not getting an answer. And the people who know me, not getting an answer is not acceptable. So I'll let you draw your own conclusions. Sorry, the phone keeps going off. I'm going to bring up this one, vaginal dryness. Yeah? It's an important point. It's something I've learned today, but it's something I think a lot of men, most men won't be aware of. So how do you share that information? Yeah? Joint pain, fatigue, high blood pressure, weight increase. I think you said 45 symptoms.
Yeah, about 50, yeah. And there's people that have individual
Yeah.
ones as well that are different. Yeah.
So, I'm grateful I came to this session. I don't know about you guys. But from a male perspective, just coming back to answer your question, Monica, I think Harry should answer this question with me. But it can be tough, yeah? And in my case, my wife was going through it living with my parents, yeah? So it's double pressure, and I'm sure some of you will be aware of that, yeah? So for me today, just some more realization and some more thank you to my wife for bearing with me, yeah?
Thank you, Meera. We'll take some question and answers. I just wanted to say thank you, Mishwar, for that fantastic, realization from a male perspective. From a clinical perspective, I'm an optometrist, and one of the things I've found is at the males of the age of 50 and women at the age around 50 do go through, I have found, go through quite a rocky patch in their marriage. So it's a honeymoon period, wonderful time, and then a rocky patch begins. And I'm just wondering how much of this has got to do with the changes inside the body, both for men as well as for women. And I saw a menopause specialist last week, and one of the big realizations after understanding more about menopause and realizing that it lasts possibly a lifetime was, gosh, that is so unfair. That's my first reaction. And when I realized that, I think my wife looked at me and said, wow, I think he's got something here. And I just felt at that time that empathy that a husband shows towards that wife, and I'm sure you've got a lot of empathy from Harry, I think means a lot to women. And I think that's the other reason why it's so important for men to understand this whole concept of menopause. And it helps to stabilize and make sure that the family goes through a smooth transition and the children go through a smooth transition. So I think that's one of the reasons why I'm here, to understand a bit more about this. So thank you very much for that. Can I just take some questions, especially from the men in this room? Please come forward on this side, just so that we can capture you on the camera. Any questions? Or if you want to ask from there, we can twist the camera towards you. Yeah.
Hi, Meera. Thank you so much. It was really useful today. I've got a quick question. In terms of diets, are there any sort of specific vegetables, anything that's really good whilst you're going through menopause that you could suggest?
It's interesting because there are some vegetables that have that are high in something called phytoestrogens. So phytoestrogens are plant-based estrogens. One of those is soya. So you get soya or soya. I can stand up. Sorry, there's some people straining to see what I'm saying. So soya has a high number of phytoestrogens. So something to remember: your phytoestrogens, it doesn't matter how much you eat, it's never going to replace the estrogen that you're losing. but you can try and help your body to have a little bit more, but it's never going to be the same as replacing your estrogen, yeah? So phytoestrogen, some things like sesame seeds, tofu, soybean, but again, look for good quality stuff is key. The most important thing as well is things like, again, it is individual, so if anybody's got any medical conditions or anything that they're going through, this would be slightly different for example, there are some cancers that are estrogen based and you wouldn't recommend having phytoestrogen. So it's really important that people take this advice. It's a generic information and advice I'm giving you. But things like including lots of green vegetables, lots of, so your cruciferous, so your broccoli and your kale and stuff like that, that's really good with fiber, but also phenols. Another good thing to have is lots of olive oil. So olive oil is good. Reduce the amount of fried foods because your body just can't process it, yeah, anymore like it did. So even back in the day, you'd be able to eat lots of fried stuff, but reducing that and also reducing the amount of sugar that you're consuming. Those things are key. Increasing water, making sure having enough water is really important. But foods-wise as well, the other things to think about are vitamin D, really important, and that usually has to be supplemented because we can't produce it enough as Indians. There's no way we're going to get enough vitamin D. Zinc is a really good one to have in your diet. So things like pumpkin seeds will have zinc. Selenium is really important as well. That's another one that's in Brazil nuts, so like having a small Brazil nut and just one Brazil nut because they're super high in fat every day is enough. And then things like magnesium as well. So again, that can be something, so when quite often people complain about cramps and things like that when they go to bed, restless legs and that kind of thing. You can get things like magnesium sprays as well to topically apply, but magnesium is another one to sort of include in your diet. But again, you'll get all of those things, a lot of those things through those vegetables, yeah? One thing we start to lose is muscle mass as we get. So from 30 onwards, it's harder for our body to keep our muscle mass. And the reason we need muscle is because that's what skeleton is there, but without the muscle, skeleton drops, right? We need the muscles and the ligaments to hold us up. And as we get older, we can get frail. We don't want to be that. We want to have muscle. But we stop being able to produce and maintain our muscle. So we have to be really careful about eating the protein and doing that strength-based exercise as well. So just making sure you're getting enough good quality protein in your diet as well. Be mindful of supplementation. Make sure you're taking what you need. Don't take what somebody else is taking. I've said that, but also don't take something because it says menopause on it. You know, it's that the one thing I said about 6 years ago was as soon as the world cottons onto menopause, particularly the manufacturing industry, we're going to be bombarded with it. And now everywhere you go, it's menopause this, menopause that. That's menopause approved. That's it. Are you a menopause expert? Have you got a tick by your name? I mean, no, it's just people trying to make money a lot of the time. So just be really mindful of your supplementation. Make sure you need it. Even with vitamin D, make sure you get a blood test. Make sure you get the information before you start supplementing. Again, there are some people that will have things like ashwagandha and maca and all of these different types of foods and superfoods, as they're called. There really isn't anything such as a superfood. Foods are food. If they work for you, they're super. If they don't, they don't, right? But, again, the reason I'm saying this is because I've been down this road of, I've got those 10 years that I was struggling, I've been down it, I've done the whole thing. And I just, honestly, I felt no different being on them or off them once I started. I've had enough. I'm taking 20 tablets a day. I'm taking this. No, am I really feeling much better? No. So that's just important. I just want to add a couple of things from the comments that we heard, which are brilliant. But I'm postmenopausal and have been for 5 years. I don't know whether Harry's living his best life, but I'm living my absolute best life. Harry's coming kicking and screaming. But I am fitter than I've ever been, stronger than I've ever been, healthier, touch wood, happier, of course, ups and downs, but I'm absolutely living the best life. You actually start to care less Yeah, you literally do not care what people think. You definitely sift out your friendship circles and your relatives. We're doing my daughter's wedding, and it's like, oh, I haven't been invited. No, you haven't. So, you know, if I haven't seen you for 5 years or 10 years, why would I invite you to the wedding? But, you know, you literally just stop caring. And it's not a bad thing, it's a good thing. And you start to put yourself first. So perimenopause is rough. It is. I will tell you that. It is rough. It's really important you navigate it well. But come out, when you get into post, making sure you're doing all the right things, so keeping yourself healthy because of those, the risk to disease is high. It's honestly, it's a really, really lovely time. So hang on in there. And divorce rates, you're absolutely right, divorce rates rise. I don't know if you know people, or I mean, you know, but when the kids are slightly older, suddenly they all start, like, we're not living together, we're divorcing, we're separating because the kids are old enough. That's potentially because that's what they've just been through. They've struggled with that. No one's ever talked about it, you know, and your relationship is not as it would be. And that also goes down then to talking about the vaginal dryness and atrophy. Your genitalia are going to change. And it's really important that you get comfortable with knowing what that looks like, because it's actually really easily solved. Okay, and the other thing is urinary tract infections. The most common thing in women, urinary tract infections. The reason for that is because everything down below is drying up. And because it's drying up and it's changing, it's not as plump as it used to be, the infections start to cross and be able to cross across. And it's so simple. It is one of the simplest things you can do is localized estrogen. Whether it's in a pessary or you have to insert it, or whether it's just applied locally onto the area, game changer for your relationships, but also for your comfort. Like, you get women not being able to wear jeans or tight clothes because it's just all very uncomfortable there. It's so easy to solve. There's a lady there's a doctor, and I'm forgetting her name because brain fog's kicked in, and it's kind of getting late for me. What's her name? There is Nigat, but I can't remember. It's not just Nigat.
Brain fog.
Brain fog. There is brain fog. That is exactly brain fog. But I will remember her name in a minute. She did the conference with us. So she was talking about something, about an estrogen ring. And she literally said, if I could do one thing, Jacqueline Bowden, she's another one as well, if I could get every person, every woman that enters an old people's home to have an estrogen ring, it sounds a bit kind of, you know, militant, but an estrogen ring inserted, yeah, I would stop the number of admissions to the hospitals and the GPs by more than half for urinary tract infections. She said that is simply why they're being caused. So it's a simple thing, and the discomfort that those women may be struggling with, and they don't understand why. So the one thing I'm going to be telling my daughters, if they put me in a home, they have to give me the localized estrogen. That comes with me in my bag. But, you know, that's what I'm saying. It doesn't, whether you need it now or you have it later or whatever, it is a simple thing that you can do, and it's very important. Sorry, any other questions? I'm fine, happy to answer.
Meera, I just
Yes.
had a question. How does somebody decide when to get onto HRT? Because there's this thing that I don't want to get onto medication, isn't
Yeah.
it, for women? So how do you, any guidance points on this?
Do you know, the thing that I would say is don't wait. Whatever you do, don't wait until your symptoms are so bad that you can't cope anymore and then you're going to go on HRT. That's just not really if you're struggling and you know that there is something happening to you and you're speaking. So the other thing to do is to make sure you speak to a GP practitioner or a nurse practitioner or somebody in your surgery who is a women's health specialist or who has done some kind of training on menopause, because they will be much more sympathetic and knowledgeable. Speak to them, ask them, and get the advice, think about it and take it. HRT is not the miracle cure, okay? It will help with some symptoms, but those 5 stable things that we talked about, the food, the exercise, your lifestyle, doing some sort of meditation and yoga, something where you're bringing your cortisol levels down and you're making sure you're relaxing through the day. All of those things, sleeping well, those are pillars. Those don't change. Those still need to be addressed. But your HRT can really help with so many symptoms. So don't wait is what I would say. Start that discussion with your GP and your practitioner straight away. And you can be on it forever as long as they should. Again, I say this, they should do your blood pressure, they should check your blood pressure, they should monitor your BMI. BMI isn't a great measure, but they do. But they should be looking at your, making sure that you're not in the obese category because your risks are higher then. But those are the checks that they should be doing. But yeah, don't wait is what I would say.
That's fine. Any other questions? Yeah, just one here.
Hi, Meera. Thank you so much. It's been really insightful, your talk. If you were to go to a GP and ask for HRT, can they refuse?
Yeah, many do. Yeah.
Because for me, I went to the GP and she just poo-pooed me if I've got perimenopause because I'm too young.
I just said absolutely word for word. So how old are you?
I'm now 43.
Yeah.
But when I went to the GP, I was a lot younger.
So about 39, 40.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and again, the other thing to remember, by the way, I didn't talk about this because again, there's just not enough time, but cortisol. So stress is a big trigger for menopause to start, perimenopause. I went through a very, very traumatic divorce, separation. So Harry is he's the current. But I was lucky enough to find this angel. But otherwise, it was a traumatic. So that I think was also something that triggered my menopause early. But I've just said you're not too young. So the thing, yes, they can refuse you because there isn't enough knowledge and information. Okay, but you now know. Yeah, you now know that is not true. You now know how to do it. So you need to go in and go, I am really sorry. These are my symptoms. This is what I'm going through. Do a blood test for me. Not going to tell me that I'm perimenopausal, but it will tell me, it will rule out other stuff. And you need to challenge. Why are you refusing the HRT? You've got every right to challenge. I was actually on a panel at a Bupa symposium. And I was on a panel with about 4 or 5 other people, and 300 medical practitioners there and about 200 online. And I just said really clear, because we're talking about the state of the NHS, and I've got, again, nothing against the NHS, nothing against doctors, I really don't, they work super hard. Sorry, is that me coming too close to that? But one of the things I said was, if I'm standing in front of you, a doctor, and my faith in medicine starts to diminish when I'm sitting in front of you and I know more than you about a particular topic, and I can actually tell you, this is what I want to have, and this is the dose I want to have. But you need to go in and ask for a women's health specialist. If they don't have one, ask them to refer you, even if it's to a different surgery. They may have somebody that comes in, and whether it doesn't matter who it is, a nurse or whoever, it doesn't matter. But you need to speak to somebody who has got some form of training. My hairdresser, Sarah, who is 36 or 7, she's white, female, obviously, Sarah, but I've been saying to her for about 3 or 4 years, she said, I know, but I'm not, I can't. She went to the doctor. She has had every test under the sun. She's had every scan under the sun. They can't find anything wrong with her. Absolutely nothing's wrong. She then went to the GP and she said, these are the things I'm struggling. So we'll send you for a blood test. No, but you sent me for a blood test. Yeah, but there may be something. No. This is what I want. Are you? And she challenged. She said, are you a women's health specialist? She said, the minute she said that, the woman was back. The GP's back was against back up. Why do you need to see a women's health specialist? You don't need to see that. I can tell you what you need to know. It's wrong. So you need to, you shouldn't have to fight for this, but you may need to. But go in with the information. Go in logically, sensibly, keep track of your symptoms. Go in and say, these are my symptoms. Let's have a blood test and see that there's nothing else, please. But can you explain why you would refuse me HRT? There may be a really good reason, because I don't know your medical history, so I've got no clue, but there may be a really good reason, but you have every right to know why. Is that okay? Yeah. And you can always have my details and message me if you need any help or support. I'll come with you. My Sarah said, come with me. I said, yeah. She said, no, I thought, nah, better not, because the doctor would have been too scared. But I'm happy to come with anybody to go to an appointment.
Any other questions? There's one, Monica, and there's one over here, the two over there. Shall I take the ones at the back first?
Thank you, Meera. That was really, really useful. I have two questions. Can pregnancy trigger perimenopause? And the second one is, I mean, I don't know how true this is, but I've been told in a roundtable discussion that men also go through menopause.
Okay, I mean, I'm not a specialist in men going through menopause. Do men go through hormone change? Yes. Do they go through menopause? No. Because menopause is a stopping of a menstrual cycle. So unless there's some miracles happening around this room. So men do not go through menopause. Absolutely, categorically not, because meno and pause, pausing of menstrual cycle. Very simple. But they do have hormone shifts and changes. Grumpy old men, you know, it's grumpy old women all living in the same house. So it can, yeah, but they do, you can see it. You know, men do go through changes, you can see that. But not menopause. Can pregnancy trigger? So really interesting, because when my daughter was pregnant, and then after she had the baby, you know, a lot of the things she went through, I was like, my God, this is, you know, you're having this, you're doing this is how you're getting forgetful, all of those things. I think it's really important to remember that when you're going through perimenopause, it's a fluctuation and a shift in hormones. When you've just had a baby, your hormones are all over the place. So it's going to take time for your hormones to get back to where they were, if they get back to that at all. So they may have shifted forever. Is that perimenopause? Not necessarily. Yeah. So I think it's important that there is that fine line, that there are changes happening, but keeping those symptoms, that symptom checker is important. Women are having babies, you know, in between 30 and 40 now, much more commonly. So if you think about, if you're having a baby at 38 or 39, because you can still have a baby going through perimenopause, then your symptoms are going to be blurred in with that. So yes, I don't think it triggers. Pregnancy doesn't trigger, but the trauma of it could. I mean, you know, because stress does, but there isn't any evidence to suggest that pregnancy would trigger. But I think if you think about it logically, if you're having babies later and there is a possibility that you could be going through perimenopause, you may be experiencing similar symptoms. But it is also a change in hormones as well. Does that answer? Is that okay?
Hi, Meera. Thank you so much. Really useful. I wanted to ask you, looking at some of the symptoms of menopause, there's an overlap with autoimmune disorders as well. So making sure that you do get tested and don't get given other meds for other disorders. So what would you say on that?
I think it's really important that's why you need to kind of eliminate things, and doctors will, that's why age is a factor, yeah? So again, going back to why they're refusing, you just need to know why are you being refused HRT, because there may be a really good reason for it, yeah? So it is important to eliminate all the other factors first. That's important. But you know, if you are 45 or if you're 50 or 55, and you are experiencing these symptoms, again, I think it's important to eliminate other things and then to think about HRT. But yeah, I would say there is a crossover with it. So thyroid issues, thyroid concerns, very similar to a lot of the symptoms here, which is why they check for that in your blood test. So yeah, and also if you have got a pre-existing condition, whether it's endometriosis or polycystic ovaries or an autoimmune disease or anything like that, that will impact your menopause and how you experience it as well, your perimenopause. But yeah, eliminate those first, and then work towards that. Is that a particular concern for yourself, or is that just a... Yeah, but it's interesting that I mean, and that's their role, right? Is to be able to kind of not just go, right, that's what you're having, you know, and they shouldn't be giving out HRT willy-nilly either. You know, it's sometimes too readily given out. But you may want to try doing some of them. I mean, again, I'm happy to talk to anybody privately, but you may want to start thinking about just addressing, because again, with things like autoimmune and stuff, a lot of the things that I deliver and I talk about where I teach people how to balance out blood sugar and things like that and reduce inflammation, that automatically starts to help all of that, because you're actually just eating better, you're living better, you're exercising, you're moving more, but you're eating the right foods as well, and that can quite often help certain symptoms. But yeah, keep pursuing that, because you need to know what's in his mind, what's going on, and rule out everything. So yeah.
Monica?
Hi, I think I was going to ask the same thing, because I have thyroid.
Yeah.
And I've been having hot flushes.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff that you're saying, joint aches and stuff, I never had any of these things. I was actually just thyroid, and that was it. I was managing my life. I was fine. And it was just all of a sudden, everything you've said today, I can actually relate to it. Now, I don't know, does that mean I'm going through menopause now or not?
Well, I mean, again, it's that thing really, isn't it, of keeping that symptom checker. And you know yourself, you know things are changing. And the best way to start to really think about whether that is happening is keeping that symptom checker, keeping it for a few months. You'll go back to your GP, they may say, well, let's just change your medication. Yeah? But actually, it may not be the medication, it may be perimenopause.
Yeah, so now they've done a vitamin D check, and they're like, you need to take vitamin D. So that's what they've kind of added on to it.
Yeah. And again, vitamin D is very important for joint pain and fatigue. It's a really big, that's one of the symptoms of not having enough vitamin D is fatigue and joint pain. So yeah, it is going to be a bit of a suck it and see thing, really. But yeah, I would keep the symptom checker and just keep going back to them, making sure if it doesn't get any better, then just going back and saying, well, what am I going to do?
Would you suggest keeping a diary of some kind?
Yeah, just literally a symptom, just print it out and just tick it, you know, that, put the date on it. That's
Amazing.
it. Bit of a note by it, how you were feeling that day.
Cool. Can we get you to do the thanks?
If there are no more questions. Oh, sorry. So
I wanted to ask Harry quickly. Any top tips from you, Harry, that we might have not covered? Spending less time with the wife, more time with the wife, hold their hand a bit more, make them laugh a bit more, or the other way around. Take it as it comes.
I
think understanding the symptoms that Meera was sort of going through made me sort of appreciate her a lot more, and also, you know, the relationship that we have, because I was frustrated, and again, similar to another question, I could ask a question, but I wouldn't get an answer back. So I thought to myself, am I not speaking loudly enough? Does she not understand me? Is she just blatantly ignoring me? But now I sort of understand that I think it was she either needed time to process the answer, and I had to allow that time, and not sort of storm off and just sort of say, well,
I think communication was key, because even now,
communication is key.
And even now, Harry will sometimes, I will say to him, I will say to him and the girls, don't finish the I know the word, I can see it, I can see that if I'm trying to say cow, I can see the cow, I can visualize the word even, C-O-W, but it's not coming out.
I used to finish a sentence.
Oh my God, that was...
And that really used to work.
So top tip, don't finish your wife's sentences.
Thank you very much. I think a big round for Harry, at least. And we're coming on to, okay. Just wanted to welcome Jay Shriben, our chair for Northwest area. She'll be doing the thank yous. Thank you all.
thank you, Nehul. So wow, Meera, where were you when I needed you 10 years ago?
When I needed me as well. I went through it alone too.
Oh my God, I'm just like listening to everything, like, yeah, I went through that. I'm sure. How many of you can relate to the symptoms? Put your hand up, women. Look at that. Men, put your hand up if you experienced it through your women. It's incredible. How many of you thought, well, this just menopause, I'll say, you just cope with it. How many, come on, how many just like didn't even bother? I was one of them. I didn't think, I just went through it. I never went to the GP. And like you said, the GP did a battery of tests, and that's when a few things were, I sort of, this is not right and that's not right. And I remember I used to come home and I have a sesame bottle with sesame seeds, and I just like glug it. And I still do, but every day I just needed my sesame fix. And that now, now I know why, because I was lacking. So I think, it's been so informative. So thank you, Meera.
Pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Cheers.
Thank you, Harry. The people, thank you all for coming. Safe journey home.
Thank you.